So if Warren Buffett were to give you some advice, do you think you'd listen?
I've tried to read things that he said, but I never know if it's really Warren Buffett or if it's just somebody trying to clickbait me.
Sure.
I would try my best to listen.
I mean, if Warren Buffett
Financially, I
speaks,
know.
right, a lot of people are going to listen.
Warren Buffett has money he can afford to lose. So
That's true.
Gambling with so maybe.
Yeah.
Can I say maybe?
Well, the Gates family has some money that they could probably afford to lose as well.
True.
And you wonder, what do billionaires, how do they advise each other? Well, Warren Buffett, a little while back, was actually talking to Bill and Melinda Gates when they were married.
Yeah.
And had given them some advice as they were setting up their foundation. And what he gave them, I thought, was an interesting little piece of advice. I'm wondering how that fits with us today. This is what he told them. He said, find your bullseye of what you're working on and let the other things fall away. You'll feel better if you keep your talents in that bullseye and keep working on those issues. And you'll feel less bad about letting other things go. Think that's good advice?
Interesting. Well, let's think about that because it's not only the talents you have and your bullseye, but it's allowing the rest of the things you can say no to and not feel badly about it.
Sure.
That might preach.
I think it definitely could preach.
That could preach.
You know, you think about all the things that we talk about all the time that are distractions, all the little rabbit trails that we may go running down that really don't, have a lot of benefit in life. I think the potential danger is sometimes we can get so focused on a bullseye that we allow other good things to fall off and fall away that shouldn't.
Right.
But I think there's a lot of stuff that I've found over the years that I can let go. That if I can focus better, some of these other things, it's probably good if they drop off and go away.
So if I ask you if you have a bullseye where your talents and the things that the Lord's equipped you to do, can you answer that?
So,
do you have one?
Yes. And I think I would say that in one sense, there is one overarching bullseye above everything.
Okay.
And then there are smaller bullseyes, if you will, in different areas of life. So
Okay, now I'm curious.
Here's what I mean by that. Number one bullseye is to keep my eyes focused on the Lord and do what He's asked me to do.
Sure.
So in one sense, that bullseye, cultivate a deeper, intimate love relationship with God and be obedient to what He's showing and asking.
Right.
That is the big bullseye.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Yep. Ding.
Other
you got that one right.
smaller bullseyes would be, to be a more engaged husband, to be a more active and involved dad, to be more just involved in the life of our family, and to try and be both physically and mentally and emotionally present as much as possible.
That's asking a lot, isn't it?
Sometimes it is.
Isn't it? We have to say physically, emotionally, and mentally because we can physically be there and be checked out both emotionally or, in our brains. But did you say you want to be or you are? That's a bullseye.
I want to be. That is a bullseye.
Okay.
And some days, I think I do a halfway decent job at that.
Sure.
And some days I probably fall flat on my face
Gotcha.
at that.
But that's
the
definitely
bullseye,
a bullseye. Yep.
Right? In work, that would be another area where there would be a bullseye. And some days I think I hit the bullseye decently. And other days I'm like, I kind of missed it that day.
When you take the advice that Warren Buffett has said, like look at the bullseye and let other things fall away. So the overarching one obviously is the Lord.
Yeah.
And if there are things that are distracting you from that, you let those things fall away. Makes sense.
Yep.
When it comes to the family and work, can you see things like, does anything come to mind right now if you look at those individual bullseyes that goes, you say, oh, that's got to go because that is not within the bullseye?
So I think that there is one thing that has fallen away.
Okay.
And one thing that is a bit of a struggle to know how to let it fall away in a sense. And here's what I mean by that. The thing that has fallen away is just binge watching anything.
That's gone.
That is gone. I don't have the time, the margin, even so much of the desire to do it like I once did. You know, when all of a sudden we could watch whatever we wanted on demand. Netflix and Amazon Prime and all these things were there, and I could watch movies, not have to go to the theater, and I could save up and watch a whole bunch of episodes of my favorite TV show or whatever the new hot thing is that's streaming. Like that's gone.
Yeah.
Like that's not a thing anymore. I think the thing that is a challenge, though, is this little electronic device that we probably all carry around with us and all the distractions that can come through my cell phone.
Sure.
Because some of the stuff that I use it for is absolutely legit.
Yeah, important.
It's important, communication, emails, texting with, family, with work, with different things, phone calls for family and work and other things. Absolutely, totally legit. And then it can be very tempting to allow some of the distracting things to creep into that. And I need to let some of those things fall away better.
Though I know, because we've worked together for a lot of years, I know that you have in the past said something similar. And I know you've gone through seasons where you have let go of some of this. Like, I'm thinking about, there was a time we were talking about games on your phone.
Yeah.
And I think I recall during this season, you took all the games off your phone.
Yeah.
Is that true? Do I remember that correctly?
Yes.
Okay.
Games and a lot of the social media things that were on there. Yeah, a lot of that stuff has gone away. And a couple of those have kind of crept back in.
Okay.
But even at that, if I look at how much I engage with them now compared to what I used to,
sure,
it's far less.
So when things come back, is that like a game or something that maybe is you said crept back in? I just remember you liking solitaire.
Yeah.
I remember that being a game you liked.
And that is one of the things that is still active on my phone every once in a while. And solitaire, like I keep that one there because it's quick and it's easy.
Sure.
It's fast.
Right. And mindless, really.
It's kind of mindless.
Yeah.
It's a thing that, I can play in 2 minutes.
Right.
And I do not want to load those games on my phone that turn into 10, 15, 20-minute games.
Sure. Because it zaps before you know it.
Yeah.
You don't even. So when you look at the Bullseye and you think, well, maybe this needs to go, what do you, because I know it sets up in my mind, but what sets up in your mind that you go, not yet? Like, I'll just keep it on there for later. Like because I know sometimes you have to travel.
Yeah.
And if you're sitting at the airport, emails are all done, you've talked to Susie and the kids, like, you've got a quiet moment. Is that a time that you go, well, let's just play solitaire a minute?
Yeah. Absolutely. Another time sitting on an airplane and I didn't have time to watch a movie, didn't have time to do whatever, was not connected to the internet to be able to stream podcasts and whatever. So I'm like, I'm just play a few hands of solitaire or do a game like that. So yeah, it really is kind of there's a couple down minutes.
It's a filler.
It's a mindless filler.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me.
And at the moment, do you think that's something that's distracting you from the Bullseye or not?
Not at the moment.
Excellent.
No.
Do you think you have anything right now that you need to, as Warren Buffett says, let go?
If there's, maybe. It's a thing that I know can become a problem if I don't, keep managing this pretty closely. And honestly, it's like the social media short reels.
Oh.
It's the
like the dogs and
the funny little things.
Little babies.
Yeah. I mean, our family, we do martial arts.
Yeah.
And so I get all these like taekwondo and martial arts shorts, like what can win, taekwondo versus Muay Thai versus whatever.
Oh,
and
funny.
Because we're into that, I find myself clicking on those and watching a lot of these different sparring things. So that's one of the ones that is popping up on my phone now. That, if I'm not careful, can turn into, because I've had different things for whatever reason, and a couple of years ago, for whatever reason, I was just into shark videos.
Oh wow!
And all these different sharks, great whites, and different sharks.
That explains
why?
I
don't know why.
An awful lot.
Oh yeah.
Well, because we have the Dawn and Steve page, the Facebook page.
Okay.
And I kept seeing these reels of all these sharks.
The sharks. Yeah.
Why is our Dawn and Steve Facebook page getting targeted with shark reels?
That was me. I like sharks.
I see. Now I cannot figure out what the Dawn and Steve Plus page, Facebook now, because this is the only world I understand. I don't understand where we're getting the reels we get. Like the algorithm.
I don't even know what we.
No, it hasn't figured out who we are, what we do. Okay. I've X'd out on several things because they're clearly not something we want to see. But it hasn't. AI hasn't caught up with us there yet.
Okay.
Because we get just the random stuff.
Yeah. So I never.
So
can
if you start doing shark reels,
can I admit that I don't use our Dawn and Steve Facebook page very much, other than to simply log on and look at the comments that people said. Like, I do want to know what listeners think, because I know you and Briggs are doing the social, and our friend Chris are doing the social media thing. I'm like, that's the last thing I need to do, is to get in there and mess all that up.
Yeah.
Like, I just stay out of all that.
Respectable. Like, I totally get that. I would only say go to, find out, like, who's interacting.
Right. And I do jump on, and I look at it as a viewer. And every once in a while, if somebody directs a comment my direction, I'll try and respond to that.
Yeah. Which is good. And hopefully you will be able to interact with us, because we love feedback. This is the one thing about recording a podcast that we miss terribly, and that is live.
Right.
So we may have to figure out how to go live in the very near future. But right now, our interaction is email, through our website, dawnandsteveplus.com, our Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We're on TikTok.
See,
we let Chris do that.
I don't know if I've ever been on TikTok.
Oh, me neither.
I'm
I have no idea.
My age right now.
Chris and I were talking about this the other day. I digress from the Bullseye, but Chris is 18, and we were talking about this, and I said something about a comment that was made on our YouTube video, and I was like, what does that even mean? And do people watch the video, or do they just look at the title and comment? That was my question to him. And he said, oh, you should see some of the things we hear on TikTok. He said, you would not be happy. And I'm like, I don't need to know. Because people just pick a fight.
Sure.
He goes, we get a lot of interesting comments. I'm like, you just keep that rolling there, buddy.
You just handle that.
You don't have to tell me. It's all good. But Bullseyes, I do think, like we said, that would preach what Warren Buffett said. But I do think when the Lord calls us as believers to be disciples that make disciples, he kind of gives us a bullseye.
Right.
And then he gives us different talents and abilities to use for his purposes. And like you said, that's your overarching bullseye. And the family and the jobs are kind of within that.
And it plays out differently in different spheres of life. So do you feel like you've got a bullseye? Yeah.
I mean, so I would have always said I wanted to please the Lord and follow the Lord. And I look back over the last several months, and I think my schedule, though I was very sure that I was following what the Lord had for me and my family, when it was changed for me and taken away, the Lord showed his grace to me in saying, now you're really going to look at me. Now you're really going to sit with me. Like, there wasn't a whole lot of sitting going on. There was a lot of doing.
Yeah.
And trying to be faithful to follow the Lord. But to sit, to think about what the Word is saying. Like, I love that part of our job when we did live radio or live broadcasting. I love that we got to talk about him all morning long and really all day long. I couldn't tell you that I had a lot of time where I would just sit, me and him.
Yeah.
Because I
you were busy.
Didn't have the time. And then if I was off the air and home, I was tired. So my brain would not hang on to things. I think he's given me some clarity in just spending time with him. So my bullseye is spending time with him, learning what it means to be a loved child of God. Learning,
that is huge.
Isn't it huge? Learning what grace, I'm never going to understand it completely, but learning a little bit more about grace and my humanity, and that if I never did another good thing because he pulled me home, like I'm still secure in his love.
Yeah.
Because it's about him and not about me. And so my bullseye often will go to the psalm, like, I will exalt you, my God, my King. I will praise your name forever and ever. And I know it sounds like, sure, Dawn, that's what you got to say because, you're going to give the Sunday school. No, this is like from heartache and changes of circumstance and a lot of things that have happened over the last 4 years that the Lord has said, sister, you're going to look at me. You're my daughter.
Yeah.
And you're going to look at me, not what you think you know about me, but you're going to look at me. And so when you look at passage like Psalm 145, which is what I was just reading, you see that he's worthy. You see that he's great. You see you can't fathom him. And I was just in Job earlier a few days ago. I was going to say earlier this week, but a few days ago. And it was that passage about, where were you when I laid the foundation of the world?
Right.
Like, he was dressing Job, right?
Yeah. Put your big boy pants on, Job.
Yeah. Like, surely you can tell me, how did the oceans come this far and stop? I'm sure you know. And you don't like to think of the Lord as sarcastic, but he's God. He is I am. And he was telling Job, listen, dude, what I'm doing, you're not going to even understand.
Yeah.
But you're going to have to trust me. And I think that's what he's asking me. So my bullseye is trusting him. That is what I'm trying. So everything else I'm trying to let go if it does not keep me on the trajectory of eyes on him.
Yeah.
Trusting his character, trusting his plan. There are things I say right now, Steve, that sometimes I just go, why? Like, so this is a listener-supported podcast, right?
Yep.
And we haven't languaged that a whole lot, so people don't really know. But we're a nonprofit. And sometimes people will ask me about it. And I'll go, well, I don't have an income. And the Lord just quietly goes, how many times have we talked about this? I have you. When you say things like that, even though you're kind of like just making conversation and kidding, you and I have had this conversation. And that is detracting from my plan because you're running your mouth. And I'm like, okay. And he didn't do it to diminish me. Like, it's not shame.
Yeah.
It is trust on a level that I've not had to walk before. And so saying little snide comments like that to friends or whatever, he is putting me in check because it's the stuff that needs to fall away. It's not the bullseye. The bullseye is trust.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Now, sometimes we talk about living in the tension or the because this is, as you just pointed out, a 501c3 listener-supported podcast. We're able to do what we do because people give. And, like we pretty much cover the equipment expense with the podcast. That's
right
about
now,
it.
Yes.
Right now.
And thankful we can do that.
And grateful for that. And at the same time, God's like, hey, I got this. So relax with it. But and God often has work for us to do.
Yeah.
And so do you feel like you're living in the tension of that at all?
Yes. Although I think the instruction is still serve me today. That's been a common thread. Serve me today. And when I tell you to move, move. When I tell you to speak to somebody about something, then that's what. When it's time to continue the language of, listen, you need to know we're a 501c3, we're nonprofit, we're listener supported. Like that will be more. We'll say that more often in the podcast ahead. So yes, the work needs to be done, and I don't want to shy away from that. I also think there are times where he says, okay, now today you plant, today you water, today you pull up the harvest. Today, you share the harvest. Like, there are going to be different days to do different things.
Yeah.
What I don't want to do is have him tell me something, and then I go, I'm not sure how to do that. And so I put it over on the back burner, and I don't follow through on it. That unnerves me. I don't like doing that.
Yeah.
But the fear of the unknown, the fear of not knowing how to say something instead of just saying, okay, Lord, I'm making that phone call today. Go.
Yeah. Give me the words, please.
We've done that on even in broadcasting. Like, there have been times where I'm like, I don't know how to say this, Lord, but I know you do. So I'll open my mouth. I'll bring my body and show up for work. But you're going to have to do what only you can do. And he does every time. So that's the tension for me, is living in the when I tell you go and not the today. Did you want me to do that today?
Yeah.
Can I do it tomorrow? Those are the things I don't want to miss.
No, I get that. I get that for sure. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to ask you basically the same question you asked me then. If that is your bullseye, are there things that he is showing you that can go?
Yeah,
need to fall away?
There are. And I need to get really serious about asking him the question, how do I do this? Because some of the things that I think currently need to fall away are some of the things that I call relational equity. And it's like meeting a friend for lunch, or like I go to travel to see my mom quite often as I can.
Yeah.
And that takes a full day. Some of the things that I think are super important, and I think they're important to the heart of the Lord, because he wants us to have iron sharpening iron. I wonder sometimes, though, if I have too many scheduled within a period of time. Because if I'm out of the office for 3 hours to meet a friend for lunch, they're intense lunches, then I'm not, it's time away from what I might have been doing in the office and following through on some of the things that maybe he's asked me to do. So in the last couple of days, I've been really wrestling with this. Like, Lord, how do we live in that tension of cultivating friendships that are already established and important?
Yeah.
Not letting them go, but also like getting this concentrated period of time. Because some of the stuff I don't understand. Some of the stuff running 501c3, I'm learning. And I got to concentrate. I got to have brain power. So that takes uninterrupted hours for me.
Sure. I get that.
Yeah. So, and it does take hours to run.
Yeah.
Run an organization. And I want to do it well. I want to steward it well. I want to trust God with it and bring honor to him through what we do.
Well, I, for one, am glad that you are the president and that you are doing that.
Madam President.
Grateful for that. And we're grateful that you're watching. And if you want to learn a little bit more about what we're doing, you can always check out the website, because you have had your hands all over that.
Dawn&StevePlus.com, and we will be updating it again soon. We're going to try to keep that pretty relevant. Right now, it has a lot of great information on there. You can also like and subscribe, whatever platform you're listening to Dawn and Steve. That will let you know when the next podcast drops, and we always put any show notes, like this article where Warren Buffett has been the one we're quoting. We're going to put that in there, too, just to let you see kind of where our sources are coming from, and so many great scriptures. I mentioned Psalm 145. You've been reading through the Bible. I know you've been lately in the book of Deuteronomy.
Actually, I just finished 2 Kings this morning.
Oh, okay. There you go. So the word is just the authority that we live by. And so it's Dawn and Steve plus you living biblically. And we are so glad you are our plus one.